be able to see my slides perfectly, and what we're going to do is go straight into kind of working out what this webinar is all about, what we're going to do on this webinar. So first of all, this is all about what you need to know in relation to your A&P exam. For some of you, this is going to be the first time you would have done a level 3 exam, and you kind of need a little bit of extra knowledge just to kind of put your mind at ease about what to expect. But also it's about kind of getting your confidence up in some modules. So it's about exploring the key areas from all 7 modules that you have within your anatomy and physiology. So we're going to go through all these areas. Tonight I've decided to focus on 3 areas in particular, and that's because I've got some specific content for you that comes up time and time again, not only in exams, but also in questions that you guys have been asking us, especially feedback that I've been getting from people that are currently on our revision mastery as well, just questions that pop up that maybe are a particular thing that's been coming up in mock papers or in the real live papers as well. So I'm going to focus on 3 key areas out of the 7 that you have as part of your anatomy and physiology. We're also going to do some practice questions, so it's your chance to try out your strategy that you have in order to do your exam. Now you might be sitting there going, but I don't have a strategy. That's fine. The whole point is that I'm going to actually give you a strategy tonight so that you can actually go in there and know how to do an exam. That sounds strange, but so often we're trying to fill our brain with knowledge of things that we don't think about actually how we're going to extract that knowledge when we need it. So that's a really key part for tonight. And also, the whole thing is about you feeling confident. Can't stress this enough. It's just my priority tonight is that you kind of walk away and go, oh, I've got, even if it's 1% more confidence in how you feel ready for your exam, make you feel kind of like you're doing your thing towards it and drawing together all the knowledge that you've got. So that's my big aim. There will also be an opportunity at the end of tonight. For those of you that haven't already purchased our revision mastery, there's going to be a really awesome offer for tonight only for literally people that want to have more of this kind of thing, that want to be able to have more content laid out to them in a really systematic way. And I actually know a few of the guys are listening today that have joined in that are currently on the revision mastery series that we have, and they've had great results. So we'll be sort of interacting with everybody as we go through the day, but there'll be an opportunity right at the very end of the webinar to kind of go into that if you want more from us. But let's go into actually why you're here and really look into like what you want to expect from your exam, what you kind of is your next step. Now, most of the guidelines I'll share with you is based on active IQ guidelines. They do vary slightly between different awarding bodies, but they all match the same syllabus, and that obviously depends on what it is that you're studying your anatomy and physiology for. Some of you might be here for your personal trainer, your Pilates, your level 3 yoga. In fact, I know some of you are here that are still on the level 2 but are looking to go up to level 3, so taking a little sneak peek at the level. So wherever you are today, take this in relation to the level that you're at, and if any of this is different from what you've been told in terms of what to expect for your exam, then it may well be that you're operating off a different syllabus or a slightly different awarding body than what we use here at Parallel. So first off, there are 40 questions in your exam, and it's a 70% pass rate, so you need 28 to correct in order to pass overall. Now, within that, they are all multiple choice, and they will offer you options A, B, C, or D. And you literally just have to choose the differences between which one you think it is. Each question will only have 1 correct answer, although sometimes they feel like they are being a little bit misleading. Maybe it could be 2, but really there's only 1 correct answer, and that's your job to find out. Now, they break down really easily, so some people panic a little bit because they see it as 40 questions, but actually the best way of looking at it is 7 modules, 7 little chunks, and within these 7 chunks there's going to be between 3 and 8 questions, and that will vary depending on the paper that you're taking. But these 7 chunks are heart and circulatory system, musculoskeletal, muscle names and locations, so knowing the name of the muscle and where it is, maybe the insertions and origins as well, knowing your posture and core stability, knowing the nervous system, and also endocrine system as well. So alongside those, and energy system too, alongside those 7, you literally have a way of chunking down your exam. So you know that they're going to appear usually, I'm going to say this usually in inverted commas, in that order in your exam. So already when you go in, you know to expect 3 to 8 questions on heart and circulatory system, right bang, straight in front of you, the first thing that you approach. Now that kind of does something for what you expect. And if it doesn't then throw you off kilter, it'll help you feel more confident in the exam straight away. So that's one big tip that sometimes people are less aware of. I wanted to share with you tonight. Now, this next bit is all about whether you have a strategy or not. So I'd be really interested actually if you guys pop into the chat box if you have any strategies that you use personally to go in there and get prepared for your exam. I'm going to share with you kind of my top few points really. The first point is to plan your brain dump up front. Now, a brain dump is something that you do as soon as you get into your exam, and this is that moment where the examiner gives you your paper, and they give you a blank bit of paper as well, and then they say, okay, time begins, and you can start now. And then the first thing you do is literally go to your scrap bit of paper and just splurge as much as you can down onto your bit of paper. It should be quick so it doesn't take too much out of your time of your exam, but it should allow you to kind of have a bit of a comfort blanket next to you so that you can go back and reframe back to where you are. And I find it's really, really useful, especially if you're one of those people that kind of freaks out when you see the answers that are potentially there and you kind of look at them and go, is it that one or is it that one? I wish I had a textbook next to me just to kind of regenerate and get a little bit of confidence. And that's what your brain dump does. Definitely advise you plan what you want to jot down before you get started, and then when you come to exam day, you know what to write down, and that's a really great way of doing it. Also, definitely this is a given, but make sure that you eat, drink and sleep really well the night before your exam. Be really fueled up. Don't run into the exam on literally just a Lucozade, because it's not going to last you very long and you're going to get some serious energy spike and feel a little bit low partway through. So make sure you're really fueled up and you know exactly what it is and you feel prepared for that moment whilst you're there. And alongside this, obviously, drink water. Don't go out on the binge the night before. Okay, right, next one, big point this one, and this is to not speak to anybody before you start your exam when you're talking about A&P related stuff. So important. Obviously have a chat with other people on your course, have a chat about different things because you're human, that's nice. But it's also really important, just don't go through those kind of potential A&P answers because they're just going to really totally kind of throw off what you're thinking about, or they're going to make you feel a little bit less confident in what you thought was right. So just go in there and just make that normal chit chat. No kind of A&P stuff before you sit the exam. And I'll also extend that for after the exam. Don't talk about the answers you wrote. Just relax, you've done it. So then when you get into your exam and they say time begins, that's the point where you use your scrap paper to jot down your brain dump on the key areas that you've already planned. Then go through the exam and always tackle the easy ones first. So this is to leave the harder ones to later. So you literally go through and you go, oh, I know that one. I'll do that one. Oh, number 2 looks a bit tough. I'll leave that one. And just jot down on your scrap paper number 2 and you'll know to come back to it. Really, really important point really, because it's about confidence. It's about you getting through and going, oh, I've easily completed 28 easy ones that I'm pretty confident about. Now let's apply all that rest of the time that I've got just to kind of go back over and really spend time on the ones that I'm less confident in. So that's a really great big tip for you. Obviously it sounds like an obvious one, but read the question and I'm going to give you a little strategy for how to read that. Because most people think they're reading the question when in actual fact they're reading parts of the question and they're turning it into a question they would like to see. So that then distorts the answers that they see in front of them. So it's about really reading it as it is and not altering that in our brain in any way. And I've got a little system for you. So I'm going to share with you my rebug system. If you've not come across this before, it's a fantastic way. Absolutely fantastic. So I had a comment come in already, people saying that doing a brain dump at the beginning of their exam has helped massively. So that's really great to see. I'm really glad that the brain dump's working for you guys. So let's go into rebug. Now this is an acronym, so it's really about starting off by reading the question thoroughly and making sure whilst you read that question, you cover up the actual possible answers that they have there. So literally physically do this with your scrap paper. I'm here like moving my hands around as if you guys can see me. So you literally cover your answers with the scrap paper and you just read the question. You extract the main keywords. So that's kind of thinking, what exactly is this question asking me? Take time on that. Just what exactly is it asking me? If I really just look at those keywords. And then imagine that the key subject words are in bold. So they're kind of standing out the page at you. And then underline the action words. These are things about whether they want you to answer the things that are or the things that are not. So, for example, which of the following is part of the motor skills, for example, or which of the following is a component of fitness, or which of the following is a myofilament, for example. What are they saying it is? Or are they saying it is not? So important, and quite often the one that people get held up on. So that one's definitely a really great one, part of it to do. Then this is the next bit. You get to guess. Guess what the options are and what you might think the answer is. So you don't uncover it yet, and you just think, well, if that's the answer they're giving me, if that's the question they're giving me, what might the answer be? And then uncover and have a little look to see if your answer is there. If it's there, maybe a little tweak of some wording, but if it's there, really read the answers to check you've got the right one, and then that's a good place to start. Go with that one. If it's not there, or if you have done it but you're not so sure, go over the question and estimate the answers one more time. So this is a fantastic tool to use, and R is read, E is extract, B is bold, U is underline, G is guess, and then the second G is go back over. So if you do this for every single question that we have on here tonight, we've got about 5 test questions for you to do tonight, then it will help you get in that rhythm. And also I'll be able to send you a link after this webinar is done for 101 mock questions if you don't already have them. So you can literally practice this to your heart's content, and it's about having your strategy set up so you can get rocking and rolling on your exam. Okay, let's go through these 3 key areas now. So I think obviously now you've kind of got to grips with your strategy, and I'm guessing there's a kind of good bit of platform basis there. Let's kind of really go into what we're going to talk about tonight. And tonight I'm going to talk about just 3 of the 7 modules in depth. But I've also got something special for you. So first off, I've got a free 50-minute video that I'm going to give you. Now, I was umming and ahhing about how I could get all the really important content in this tonight, so that I actually don't just scoop over the surface of some comments, but I actually go deep into the things that you guys really need to know about. And the way I decided to do that was to give you guys a whole free 50-minute video on the heart and circulatory system. And I'm going to email that to you once we're finished here tonight. And it will definitely come through on the email that I send you tomorrow that's got this replay on it. But this free 50-minute video is literally what we have inside our Revision Mastery series. It's literally 50 minutes of me telling you everything there is to know about the heart and circulatory system. And actually, I was talking to a lady a moment ago, and I know she's on here, so hi. And Gemma was saying that this heart and circulatory system, how it's kind of been portrayed and how I lay it out in this video, is that it makes the learning of it so clear, and it just chunks it down, so rather than being long and confusing, it makes a load of sense. So I'm going to give you that link towards the end of the webinar, and also I'll give that link to you on an email that you get at the end of the webinar. So then there are a few other different sections, and the one that I'm going to talk about in depth today is muscle structure. So we're going to go through that in a good detail. Now again, this is another one we get a lot of questions about, the actual structure of a muscle. Then we're also going to talk about proprioceptors as part of the nervous system tonight. And then finally, we're going to look in detail on the endocrine system, relating in particular to blood glucose levels. So they're the three main big bits we're going to attach onto. But as I said, you'll get a chance to practice questions relating to these areas, and it's just a really great time to spend this on your own revision time. Now, if you have any questions as we go through, as I said, pop them in, and make sure again that you hit me those questions right at the end, so that if it deviates from any of these subjects, I can just grab them all at the end. So let's go straight in. This is what I was saying about in terms of module 1 is your free 15-minute video. That's coming straight into your inbox. So that one's there. The next one we're going to look at is musculoskeletal, and this is all in relation to exercise. It's about the structure of that muscle. So really, really nice, fantastic stuff. Okay, lovely. So a couple of comments coming in. Keep telling me how well you're doing with your rebugs and stuff, guys. I love it. So keep those coming in. Some really great feedback coming in about how these tips are helping. So attachment of muscles. This is our first place to start. Straight in here with some content. So this is where you get your pen and paper out and you get going with these notes at the same time. So fascia is going to be a really important basically connective tissue that we're going to talk about, and that massively relates to our musculoskeletal system. We need to know this before we go on and talk about muscle structure, because fascia has a massive part to play in all of our muscle structure and our muscles. And fascia is composed mainly of collagen fibers, but it's kind of like a spider's web. So just imagine now that you're kind of standing and you walk yourself into a great big spider's web. Apologies if anybody's arachnophobic or scared of them at all. So you literally just walk yourself into a spider web and you kind of encase yourself like you would wrap a chicken breast in cling film and put it in the fridge. Same kind of thing. It's the cling film that goes around all of our muscles, and it literally runs in loads of different directions, and it's this kind of spider's web, this kind of stocking that encases everything about our muscles, and it basically converges and wraps together to create like this tendon at the end. So if you take the chicken breast example, wrapped in cling film, rather than folding over the ends really neatly, just pull them out slightly and curl around the edges, and you've got a nice strong tail to either side. That's exactly what your muscle looks like, and it's just got these tendons now at the end. So that fascia envelopes around and becomes the tendons, which is all collagen. So the fascia is important because we need it to hold things together like the cling film, and we need it in order to hold the strength of that muscle in the same plane that we need. Our tendons are there to attach our muscles onto our ligament, onto our bones. So the tendons attach muscles to bones, and the way I remember these is that they hold on to the bone. So tendons hold on. That's how I remember it. Whether that helps you guys, I'm sure it will. This is again mostly collagen. It's exactly the same as your fascia. It's just now strong. It's running in one direction now rather than all over the place, which means that it can be really strong, really tensile, so that when you contract your muscle, it can pull on these end bits of tendons to create movement. That's what we want. That's why we've got muscles going across joints, so that we can create some movement going on. Okay, and then the other parts that we need to know about before we get started on this in detail is about the origin and the insertion. Now, you've heard these words. You've heard them a million times before when you've been trying to revise, and you're kind of going, oh man, what is the origin and insertion of every single muscle? I will say now, if you guys get stuck on that, I literally have a whole module of that in the revision mastery. I thought it might be a bit dry for tonight to do, but yes, there is a whole module on it, every single origin and insertion. So this part is the origin, is where that muscle originates. So where is it, the stationary point where it attaches to the body? And this is the fixed end. So usually it's the side closest to your heart, and it's the bit that's fixed. It's on the fixed end of it. And then the insertion is the other end of that muscle, whereby it attaches to the moving bone, and it's usually furthest away from the heart. So for example, on this bicep that you can see on this image, you can see the origin is right up here, right past the top of the humerus. You can see that the top of the humerus is kind of wrapping around and it goes just behind the collarbone, and it's literally sitting on a little nook just behind your collarbone and right on top of in the shoulder, and then it literally inserts past the elbow. We know it's got to go past the elbow because we want the elbow to move when we contract it, so it's got to go past it in order to pull on it. So that's a big giveaway. And then you can see it just in shot, just hanging in there on the radius. So that's kind of a little overview of our fascia, our tendons, our origins and insertions, just to kind of get some words thrown out there. Now, just take a little swig of water, have a deep breath, and this is where we're going to go into some serious structure of skeletal muscle. The reason why I chose this bit tonight is it's a question that comes up time and time again, and it's from learners that are learning, but also from exams. And also it's a big step up from what you learn at level 2 potentially, whereas some of the stuff at level 3 are quite similar, isn't it? Like the heart, etc. Some of it is quite similar, but this bit is a bit of a step up because we need to know the ins and outs of our skeletal muscle. So skeletal muscle isn't just one great big bulk. It's not like when we look at a chicken breast and we just see one great big thing. It's actually all broken up. And I want you to think about Russian dolls. So Russian dolls literally fit inside each other and they stack up, kind of like pop, 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 all stack up into one great big muscle in this case. Our muscle, if it was just one great big unit that could only contract in one way, just think how rubbish that would be if we suddenly needed to use that muscle in different ways, or we strained that muscle, or we overworked it and it's in the middle of healing. So it's at a point whereby it needs to have all these little different breakdowns in order to get to a point or to allow it to have that long-term adaptability and that long-term sustainability in the muscle. So think about your muscle as actually a series of Russian dolls, and that'll help you on this next part. So this is our muscle belly. And this is just like I was explaining to you a moment ago. The chicken breast as we see it covered in a lovely fascia, and then that fascia curls up at the end and becomes a tendon. Now that fascia that curls up at the end, this is the cling film. As that cling film goes around the outside, that's actually got a name. Now this is where it differs from level 2 because you don't need to name it at level 2, but now at level 3 we need to name it. So at level 3, this is called epimysium. Now, before you kind of go, oh man, big word, just want to break it down. If any of you have ever had to learn languages before, then, I mean, I'm rubbish at languages actually, give me anatomy any time of the day. But really this one, I want you to think about breaking down the word. So if you can see epimysium on my screen, it's on the first bullet point. It's got epi at the beginning, and then it's got my, and then sium, okay? For purposes of this, just to help you kind of understand it, there might be some technicalities amiss, but the myo always relates to muscle. So myo is muscle, so like myocardium is the heart muscle, but myo is always muscle. And then for this purpose, just link sium to that to the connective tissue around the outside the fascia. That's all we need to think about it for now. Now mysium is fair enough. But for this big one around the outside, we're going to call that epimysium because it's epic. It is literally the biggest and largest bit of our connective fascia tissue that we have in a muscle. It's the largest, and that goes around the muscle belly. Good stuff. Okay, so then we've got the muscle belly, and then that muscle belly, remember I told you about Russian dolls? Good stuff. That muscle belly is made up of lots of fascicles. Now a fascicle is each one of these little bits that you can probably see on screen here now quite easily, and you can see it's kind of got more little bits inside of it, but it's this main shoot that's shooting out, and you can see this on this example there's 5 fascicles sitting in here. Now this fascicle is basically just a compartment, and that is covered in another connective tissue, because in order to separate each of these compartments or bundles we need to kind of separate them. So this is now like having like cutting your chicken breast into pieces and cling filming each of them before putting it into one great big cling film. So it's about kind of keeping it all in together and keeping it in nice and close. And these are classed as a fascicle. So the connective tissue that goes around this is now called perimysium. And perimysium is a connective tissue, still fascia, same thing, but this time it covers the fascicle. It covers the fascicle. So this perimysium, again, look at the word, it's on the third bullet point down. Look at the word, it's got peri, then it's got my, remember myo is muscle, then sium we said about is the connective tissue for this purposes, and then peri, how can we relate that? How can we make that stick in our head? Okay, I'm going with peri because I'm a big kind of Nando's fan, so let's chuck that in there. You always put the peri sauce in the middle of your wrap or in the middle of your chicken burger. You generally don't put it on the outside. So that's how we're going to remember this one, is that literally your fascia that goes around the middle bit, the fascicles, is going to be called a perimysium. Peri goes in the middle of your sandwich. Love it. Then we go down one more tier, one more level again, and this is to this point here. Can you see this next bit that's just jutting out, the final part that's popping out from here? And this is going to be a muscle fiber. Now, a muscle fiber is also covered in a connective tissue. Now, this one's called endomysium. Now, endomysium, again, look at the structure of it. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth bullet point down. Have a little look at the word. Endo, and then you've got mysium. So remember, we said muscle is connective tissue. Lovely. We've got the muscle and the connective tissue. Then we've got endo. Endo, in this case, think end of the line. The smallest part is the end point. And this covers the muscle fiber. Now, before I go any further on any other parts of this in detail, I really just want to highlight the difference on your exams. Exams like to ask, for example, which connective tissue covers the muscle fibers? And obviously that would be endomysium. Or which muscle tissue covers the muscle belly? Which connective tissue covers the muscle belly? That's obviously going to be epimysium. What they're looking for is, can you distinguish between muscle fiber, fascicle, and muscle belly? And can you link each of those to the type of connective tissue that goes around it? Nice, that's all they're asking you. And you've just then got to pick the right two. So you've got some nice strategies here to help you remember. Epimysium because it's epic, perimysium because your peri goes in the middle, and endomysium because it's the end of the line. Now, this muscle fiber breaks down again. So this is going into our smallest of our Russian dolls now. And what I want you to think about now, whilst you think about the muscle fiber, is think about the line that all the muscles that you have in your body actually has. If you look at a really good anatomical drawing of muscles, you can actually see the lines on it. So like, for example, glutes on a nicely drawn anatomical drawing has some lovely, like almost looking diagonal lines across it. Biceps usually have a lovely vertical line down them. Those lines are created by the muscle fiber itself and how that lines up. Now, though all those muscle fibers have to go in exactly the same direction in order to create action in that way. So we need something to happen to those muscle fibers that will make it shorten. So that once that muscle shortens, we can then get movement at our joint. Now, this is where the magic happens. So it doesn't happen really in the others, they just kind of follow around. This is where the magic happens. And they happen in something called a myofilament. Right, let's break this word down. Myofilament, look at my bottom of my bullet points now. Myofilaments. Think filament being something small, so usually a filament is tiny, and then myo being muscle, so it's the smallest part, or the smallest proteins basically, of the muscle. Now, these are the smallest contractile proteins, and they're called myofilaments. We've got two different types. We've got actin, and we've got myosin. So you've probably heard of these now. Okay, nice. So actin and myosin work together. Let's get these up on screen as well so you can see them as it shoots out of here. Now, actin and myosin, you can see these just shooting out of the very final part of this image. You've got a thick one and a thin one. Now, the thick one is called myosin, and that's because it's the thick, muscly bit. And actin is the thin one. The way I remember this is that actin actually sounds a bit like the word thin, so I can remember that actin's the thin one, and then I just work out myosin as being the other. So yeah, so actin and myosin work together. They are both myofilaments. Now, there is a collective name for how these two kind of hang around. So the actin and myosin work against each other, and we're going to have a look at that in just a second. But they work with each other to create this muscle contraction, but they together are classed as a sarcomere. So sarcomere, and that basically is just a block of within the muscle fibre. So within the muscle fibre we have multiple sarcomeres which are made up of myofilaments. So that kind of brings us on to our sliding filament theory as well in just a second. So let's head on over to those actually now. What I want to do is just show you right at the bottom here the drawing that we have. Now, which one did I say is the thin one? Thin one is the actin, nice. So this literally is the blue line that you can see on this fantastic drawing at the bottom. And then myosin is the thicker one. And the myosin kind of has these little golf club heads on the end. They look like little mini rowing boats from the sky. So imagine you're a bird looking down, they look like little mini rowing boats. Now, what's happening is that we actually have ATP, which you'll know this from your energy system section, adenosine triphosphate, sitting on the end of these golf club heads. And then as that attaches on with the actin, they draw each other together. So if you imagine a concertina effect, then this is going to be exactly the same. So you're literally starting off together, and it's literally starting to starts off apart and it starts to concertina together. So if you imagine now those blue lines are being pulled towards each other as those little boats start rowing. Those little boats start rowing, and instead of imagining that the boats move, just imagine that the blue lines get drawn together, and that's how muscle contraction happens. So now take those lines, just turn them directly 90 degrees, so you can, in your head, so that they're sort of standing upright, and make that your bicep. Now they're going to run down the length of your bicep. So now imagine those little boats are rowing away, and as these boats are rowing, they're latching hold of the actin and they're drawing it in closer and closer and closer and closer. And as that's doing that, your bicep starts to contract, it shortens, and your joint changes. And there you have flexion of your elbow. Fantastic stuff, isn't it? And that is happening on a microscopic level. So now this actin and myosin are working. We know that they create muscle fibre. Now, bundles of these are basically into sarcomeres, and sarcomeres build up into muscle fibres. We know that muscle fibres are then covered in a connective tissue called an endomysium. Nice. Now, as that's covered, that muscle fibre is still only the width of a human hair. So it just shows you how many muscle fibres we have in every single muscle that we have. And it's absolutely amazing. And they run the whole full length of that muscle so that we can get that full contraction to happen. Now, when we want movement to happen, we innervate at the point of muscle fibre. So that's where our nerves come in and go and get that muscle fibre to contract. And it tells all of the actin and myosin in that place to contract. Fantastic stuff. So I want to also just take a little speedy trip down through the different muscle fibre types. But before I do that, I would just like you to so far just kind of tell me what your biggest takeaway so far is in relation to the sliding filament theory, which is our actin and myosin doing their little rowing boats, and also our muscle structure so far. Nice stuff. Fantastic. Got some good comments coming in. I'm glad you guys are doing really well. Good. Okay, fab. So keep those coming on through, and I'll have a little look at what your biggest takeaways are in just a second. Let's carry on through to type 1 muscle fibers. You may well have heard before that there are 3 different types of muscle fibers. You've got type 1, type 2A, and type 2B. Now, they differ massively, in especially the type 1 compared to the type 2B. Type 1 is totally slow twitch, so it's responsible for our slow twitch movement. Now, we all have a mixture of all of these, all of these, all broken down into our body. So each one of us has some type 1 muscle fibers, some type 2A muscle fibers, some type 2B muscle fibers. And in each one of our muscles, so take our biceps, we'll have a mixture of those in there as well. But some people will have more type 1s and some people will have more type 2Bs, which is why some people are better at different types of sport than others, or better at different intensities than others, especially on different parts of their body. So you might have this whereby you could run all day long, it's like you've got type 1 muscle fibers throughout your legs, but give you an upper body exercise and you're spent instantly. So we've all got kind of these different areas that we're maybe stronger or got better endurance at. So I want to just explore each of these a little in detail because it comes up time and time again in exams, and the thing that happens the most is that people get confused between which is type 1 and which is type 2A and type 2B. They generally know the gist of it, but they get them the wrong way round, either a result of not reading the question or a result of kind of panicking out a little bit. Now, however, you need to do this in your head to link type 1 to being slow twitch. So type 1 is the slowest. This is your usually endomorphic type person that's got lots of type 1. Ectomorphic. Can't believe I said endomorphic. Sorry, guys. Ectomorphic type person, which is usually type 1, which means that they are really great at endurance events, or maybe they can keep going for a long period of time. Now, these are slow twitch. So relate this, if you can, to your ectomorph, i.e. number 1 is quite a long number. Then, as a result, it's slow twitch. It's long duration. So on here, it's classed as slow oxidative. If you ever come across this word, it just means it's slow twitch and it uses oxygen. That's it. That's all it means. They have loads of blood flow, loads of capillaries, and that makes it red in colour. So link redness to type 1. Also, loads of mitochondria. Now, mitochondria is the powerhouse in our cells that creates creates energy using aerobic. So it's creating ATP in your mitochondria. So these have lots of mitochondria and lots of blood flow because it's an aerobic style muscle fiber. It's an aerobic type muscle fiber. They're really good at efficient fat burning. They are very resistant to fatigue. They aren't very great at generating massive force because they'd rather just go smaller force for a long period of time. And generally, types of activities that these would be really suitable for are long distance or duration type intensities, and anything whereby we're using our aerobic energy system, which means more than 3 minutes. Ah, nice. So then it says more than 3 minutes. You go straight in. Must be mostly using my type 1. Mostly. Remember that. It's not exclusively, but mostly. Let's hop in and have a comparison to this between type 2A. Now, type 2A relates more to our lactic acid system in relation to our energy systems, so we can equate that one. It's fast twitch, so it twitches fast. It creates fast contraction. Now, its posh name is fast oxidative glycolytic. Now, that means it's fast and it uses some oxygen, some glycogen. Nice. Okay, we can break that down. We can go, I recognise the oxy and I recognise the glyco. I know I can make those words, that it must use oxygen and glycogen in order to do it. Now, these have some capillaries, but not as many as our type 1, but more than the type 2B. So you can kind of see this is the middle ground one. They are kind of pink in colour because it's got some blood flow to it, but not a lot. Okay. It's got larger amounts of mitochondria than type 2B, but less than type 2A. So you can see that, less than type 1, and you can see that it's this middle ground. Fab. There's also it's going to produce much higher force than with the type 1s that we were talking about, but it's not going to be as strong as the type 2Bs. Now, these are really good for sort of sprinting distances, anything more than about 10 seconds of work, up to 3 minutes. So it really relates to that lactic acid system. And these are really prone to hypertrophy. So type 2A and type 2B muscle fibers like to hypertrophize. They like to get bigger because that's a characteristic that they have in relation to the energy system they're using, and they're fast. They like to train fast. They like to move fast, but they can't go for that long, but they can go for longer than the one I'm going to introduce you to. So your next one is type 2B muscle fibers, and notice the posh word for this one is fast, but this time it's just glycolytic. Now this means that it doesn't have oxygen in it anymore. So it's happening in a way that means we cannot use aerobic at all. And it's going to have really low levels of blood flow, really low capillaries, hardly any mitochondria, and it's going to be super pale in colour. So you can kind of already see that these are massively different, but they're on a sliding scale. So you go from type 1 all the way down to type 2B on a really nice sliding scale. These are the forceful ones. They can create massive force, but they do get really tired out really easily. They'll only last about 10 seconds and then they're done. They do high intensity powerlifting, explosive work, and they're done. So just to kind of recap these, type 1 is the one that's more equated to aerobic work, for example, that's about endurance. It's about using oxygen as a fuel source. Type 2A is the middle ground, and that's kind of where we're going to use, it's fast twitch muscle fibers, but we can use some oxygen as a way of getting rid of some of the toxins and stuff that we accumulate. And then type 2B is just glycolytic. It's literally just fast, powerful, and no oxygen here at all. Now, if you really look at these three and just compare the colours of them in particular to say something like chicken, I think this is a really good example, but bear with me if it's slightly random. Think about a chicken in terms of the meat that you might eat on chicken. Apologies for any vegetarians. The meat on the legs is usually red, kind of like a pinky colour, and that's because they spend all day walking around on their feet, and their legs are mostly going to be their type 1 muscle fibers. They're kind of pinky in colour, red in colour, which means that they've got high blood flow to there. Whereas their chicken breast, the white part, is white meat, which means it's really pale, and they flap fast. So as they're flapping fast, that's their fast twitch muscle fiber. But as they're flapping fast, they also don't fly very well because they can't last very long at doing it. So that's how I remember the differences between it. I hope that helps. So what is your biggest takeaway so far in terms of the muscles and how these and all the different things I've taught you about muscles so far tonight? I appreciate you guys have been concentrating very hard in relation to muscles this evening as I glance down at my clock. So what is your biggest takeaway so far in relation to muscles in particular? Thank you, Gemma, for saying about the breakdown between epic, peri-peri, and endomysium. Really great to hear. I've got one test question for you guys now. Are you ready for it? Or two test questions, apologies. Do this in terms of your rebug if you can. So cover up the question, cover up the answers, and just look at the question. First question, which of the following is a myofilament? And then once you've broken down that question, looked at it in bold, looked at the underlined points, and then from there have a guess, and then pop your answer in the chat box as well. Same for number 2, which type of muscle fibers contain fewer mitochondria? So pop your answers in the chat box. Let's have a look. Let's see how you're getting on. Nice. Good. Okay, we've got some great answers coming in. So overall, probably about 80% there, I reckon, in terms of your answers. So good effort, really good. Number 1 is, yes, definitely A. So actin is a myofilament. The others aren't myofilaments. They are other parts in relation to a muscle, but they are not the smallest bit. Remember, filament was a tiny bit, the actin. Lovely. Which type of muscle fibers contain fewer mitochondria? Now, if you really look at this, you can actually see that all of them, in terms of answers, 3 of them actually answer the same type of muscle fiber. So it must be D, type 2B, because they actually have the less mitochondria, because they don't need to do aerobic. But type 1 has red muscle fibers and is slow twitch. So we actually know that all the other 3 relate to type 1 anyway, which only leaves us with 1. So it kind of helps with the kind of go for it element of that. Good answers coming in. I even got a little eek in response to Gemma getting them right, and a few of you getting some great answers. Love it. So yeah, well done, Paul. Well done, Gemma. Well done, Catherine. You got both right as well. Jamie, well done. Donna, good. Just have a look back through some of those parts. And Jamie again, lovely, good stuff. And Leslie, really nice. Okay, some fantastic answers. Keep that brain switched on as we hop on through. Grab a guzzle of some water. I'm going to explore some stuff about nervous system. I will share with you now, just to let you know, that these other parts I'm going to go through maybe won't take as long. And the reason why I wanted to really focus on that muscle structure is, as you guys have just found out, it's the one that people have lots of questions about. So let's hop into the nervous system. I'll have a quick guzzle of water too. I should get my croaky throat for the next half hour or so. Okay, nice. We're going to talk about the nervous system, but a particular part of the nervous system. Now, to just set the scene to get going, the nervous system is obviously in charge of our control. It does all of the control in our body. And actually, whenever we're actually training our nervous system and our energy systems. They're the things we're training. Well, most people look at it like we're training muscles, but really it all comes down to training the nervous system to respond and get the muscle to move, and then having the energy in order to do it. So what we need to know from a fitness point of view is about what's actually happening with that muscle, and with that nervous system to make that muscle contract, and why it needs to contract. And also this then will relate to our endocrine system when we look at that later, because our nervous system controls every part of our body and tells us to do things based on the information it gets. Now there are 2 key parts: central nervous system, and that is only the brain and spinal cord. So this is one for you in particular, Maxwell. You sent in a question earlier. So this is literally the brain and spinal cord are the only things that make up the central nervous system. Kind of makes sense. It's the central part. Everything else is peripheral. It's the peripheral nervous system. It's on the outside. And then within that PNS, that peripheral nervous system, we have 2 different types of neurons. We have sensory neurons and we have motor neurons. Now, sensory neurons are going to take information from a sensory receptor. So let's kind of look at my little image at the bottom here. Imagine this little red dot is a sensory receptor. So this might be on your skin, for example, and then you just lay that hand over a flame and you stimulate that sensory receptor. You then send a signal up through your sensory nerve. Now we've got a different name for this: afferent nerve. Okay, afferent is going from your sensory receptor, and it takes that signal to your central nervous system. Now it might just take it to the spinal cord, because if it's a really automatic response, or you might have to take it up to your brain, think about it, and then create a response. But from the central nervous system, we've got to do something with that. Now we've interpreted it, we've got to get something to happen. So this is where we fire up those motor nerves. And this is where the motor nerve, or the efferent nerve, fires and sends that little signal down to the muscle to get you to move. So let's look at it in relation to the flame. You put your hand over the flame, then you feel that happen, or you feel the heat on your sensory receptor in your hand. That then sends a signal. You can draw your hand up your arm like I am as we go if you like. Sends a signal all the way up your arm into your central nervous system, so right in at the spine, and then the spine or the brain tells you to move. Something needs to move, so it sends a signal all the way back down, but this time it needs to contract certain muscles. I almost can't even think about this logically. Certain muscles to make you move your hand. Now, thankfully, that's automatic, because else we'd get ourselves into some serious problems most of the time. And we learn to make this automatic so that we don't have to think about what muscles we need to move where. But we are in control of our motor nerves too, because we can say how much recruitment we need for a leg press, for example. So we are in control. Now, I want to highlight one more thing. It's not just muscles that your motor nerves will innervate. It's also your endocrine glands. It's anything whereby we want a response to happen in the body. So that's what this little extra circle up here is just representing, and that's just representing an endocrine gland. So it might go to a muscle, which is the oval, or it might go to an endocrine gland, which is your circle. So it could go to either. Now, there's a way of remembering these, because most people get afferent and efferent mixed up. And I still get lost on affect and effect, so please don't ask me about those two. But I can remember it in relation to this, and this is basically in relation to acing your exam. Think of ACE. A for A-C-E. So you're literally going A for afferent. That's where the information comes in. Then it goes to the CNS, and then it goes to the efferent nerve. So think about acing it, and you'll go afferent, CNS, efferent. And then logically you can apply whether it's coming from a sensory or a motor. Generally you can kind of make those connections based on sensory being something you've sensed on your skin, then it needs to be interpreted by your CNS before then getting some movement, getting some motor to happen, which is the motor nerve. So that's kind of the background of it, and now I want to kind of go into a little bit on motor units as well. Now, when we contract, we were talking about muscle fibers just a moment ago. Now, think about those muscle fibers. Remember, that's the one coated in, let's see if you guys can get it. Endomysium. Yeah, quick. I love it. Okay, great. So your muscle fiber is covered in endomysium, and it's literally that muscle fiber and potentially a few more of its peers alongside it. It might have a few attached, all linked to one motor neuron. So for example, in my bicep, I might have 5 muscle fibers attached to one motor neuron. Whereas in my quads, I might have 20 muscle fibers attached to one motor neuron. Now, either way, that is one motor unit. So it's the all or none. It's either turned on or it's turned off. There's no kind of grey areas. It's literally on or off. Now, the motor unit is the motor neuron and all of the muscle fibers that it innervates. Now, motor unit recruitment is based purely on the level of contraction that we need. So if you look at a box in front of you and you go to pick up this box and you look at it and you go, that's going to be heavy. That's going to be really, really heavy. And you gear yourself up and you go into your proper deadlift position and you go to lift up the box, thinking it's probably going to put in about a weight of about 30 kilos, you estimate. And you really lift up, and turns out there's like 5 kilos in it. And you stand up really, really quickly because you've actually recruited enough motor units to make sure you've got a great big contraction. Now, all you did was recruit lots of motor units, not muscle fibers, motor units. So you created lots of muscle units because you thought it was going to be heavy. And sometimes that's matched by the amount that you need to, and sometimes we got it wrong, in which case it becomes a very easy stand-up. Or it happens the other way, and you actually recruit 2 fewer motor units. You have to kind of have a second attempt to make sure you lift it properly the next time. And all it is down to training that nervous system. And most kind of PTs end up missing this part out of their training. It's about the nervous system that we're training, not just muscles. Here's a lovely picture of a motor unit. You've got the central nervous system, which is the spinal cord. You've got the motor units coming off, and you can see how the muscle fibers are all attached to the motor neurons. And obviously the other word for motor neuron is afferent neuron. Good stuff. I want to talk about this in relation to some proprioceptors. Now, we were talking about sensory receptors earlier, and sensory receptor obviously was implying that it was on our skin. But all of our sensory receptors aren't all on our skin. We've actually got them in our muscles, we've got them in our arteries, we've got them in our blood vessels, we've got them everywhere because they sense what's going on. They give information to our central nervous system so we can react. Now, there are 2 that you need to know about for your level 3. You don't need to know about all the proprioceptors in our body. That would take us a while. But we need to know 2. One is a muscle spindle and one is a Golgi tendon organ. And you would have come across this when you learnt about PNF stretching. So proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation, stretching. If you're not quite there yet, that's just a long word you will soon learn. So with muscle spindles, these detect how long the muscle is, how stretched out it is. Now, if you think about your muscle now, let's look at the bicep. It's easy. We've all got a spare bicep whilst we're sat here. So whilst you kind of look at your bicep and you lengthen it out totally to full extension, you get a little detection of change in length happen in your muscle spindle. Now, if you've ever slipped over on ice and almost put yourself like in splits, then you get this kind of feeling whereby suddenly you need to contract that muscle because it's gone too far. It's got to the point of absolute length. So if your muscle spindle detects that the length of that muscle has gone too far for your safety, it will have a very nice quick loop on your nervous system. It will go into your central nervous system, send a sensory message, and then send it straight back out to contract that same muscle. And that same muscle is trying to contract to then make it jam back in so that you don't lengthen that muscle anymore. So it's trying to kind of shorten that muscle again so that you don't overstretch the joint or you don't overstretch the muscle. Whereas your Golgi tendon organ is a totally separate proprioceptor, which is also in your muscle, and this senses tension. Remember these differences because tendon senses tension. So tendon and tension is quite similar in wording, whereas spindles and lengths, less similar, but there is both an L in spindles and length, so maybe we can go there with it. But they are literally located at the junction between a muscle and a tendon, and they sense when there's a massive amount of tension put on the muscle. So instead of it being about the length, now it's talking about tension. So this is where the tendon meets the muscle. So the tendon and muscle, where they meet. And if you imagine you've now got a massive load on in your hand and you're holding a really heavy bicep, doing a really heavy bicep curl, let's keep it simple, then at that point your body's going to go, the tension's too much. Now, in order to stop it from shortening too quickly, this tension being too much, then it prevents that by relaxing out the muscle. So it's literally asking it to relax that same muscle out. And that might be to contract the opposite. It might literally just be to stop that and override the motor units that's happening and say, stop this tension, it's too much, you're going to damage yourself. So really nice and straightforward. Spindles sense length of the muscle. Golgi tendon organs sense tension in that muscle. And they both basically are going about their job so that we don't damage ourselves, so that we don't overstretch or over-tense our muscles. Kind of simple, I think. So let's see how much of this stuck in our brains. So for this one, nice little quiz, get on the chat box. 2 questions and then pop your answers in the chat box. Remember to do your rebug, practice your rebug, read the question, extract the information. What exactly does it mean? Bold out the main words. Underline the action word. Does it want you to find the one or the one that isn't? And then have a guess and then go for it. So what determines the number of motor neurons recruited? And what is a muscle spindle able to detect in change? Oh, we've had a fantastic tip come in about remembering spindles. So you guys can all share this. Gemma is on this tonight. She's getting some fantastic answers, and I love this one. She says a spindler runs the length of your stairs, and tensions rise at junctions for drivers. Okay, nice. I like it. So spindles you remember in relation to spindles run the length of your stairs. So that's the length that it senses, and tensions rise at junctions. Oh, nice. I like it. Really good stuff. So yeah, all these answers are coming in thick and thin. So Jamie, Catherine, Kathy, these are all looking really, really good. Nice. Good one, Pauline. Keep them coming. Oh, Leslie again. We've got some great Great answers coming in. So let's get these out. 3 is C. So the central nervous system determines how many motor neurons are recruited, because it just goes, I'll have more motor units or less motor units based on what we need to do with it. Then what is a muscle spindle sensing? And that is literally length. So A, 4A. 3C, 4A. Good stuff. You guys are on it. Love it. Okay, the next chunk that I really want to go through with you tonight is a little bit on endocrine system. I'm not going to keep you here too long, but I appreciate we've already been more than 60 minutes, so just keep on with us. You're doing fantastic. I want to literally talk about the endocrine system as a whole to start off with, just to kind of give you an idea of what your exam is likely to ask you. They generally, in Active IQ, there aren't any labels for you to complete, so you wouldn't have to point out where these were. Some other awarding bodies there are, so CYQ, for example, I know sometimes do this. However, but even if it's a written question, they will still be asking about where about these glands might be. So it's good to have an awareness of where they are. The pituitary gland is up at the base of the brain. Thyroid and parathyroid are happening in the throat. So thyroid, throat, you kind of grasp those two together. The adrenal gland sits on top of the kidneys. The pancreas is kind of in the middle, but a little bit more to our left, which you can see on screen is a little bit more to the right of this person. And then this is literally sitting underneath the stomach. So the pancreas sits underneath the stomach. I'm going to talk about the pancreas in a little bit more detail in just a moment, because that's the one I want to zoom in on. Then we've got the ovaries and we've got the testes. So these are your main glands for your endocrine system that you need to know about, and it's worth knowing what hormone is secreted from each of these and roughly what that does. I'd keep it fairly simple, but link it to that as best as you can. So let's now look in particular. I really wanted to share you something about insulin and glucagon. Insulin and glucagon. Now, most people get a little bit confused about what's actually happening with our hormones. Now, with each of those glands that I was telling you about, they secrete hormones in order to create homeostasis, don't they? That's what all that's happening is that our sensory receptor picks up and says, something's not right here. We've either got too much of this or not enough of that going on. So we need to do something and create either put more hormones in our body or create a change somewhere that allows that balance to be restored. And that is all our endocrine system does, homeostasis, all day long. Now, we're going to talk about the insulin and glucagon in particular because A, it comes up in your exam, and B, as fit pros, regardless of whether you're Pilates, personal trainer, yoga, maybe just level 2, whatever it is that you do, this is important because at this point you understand what's going on in your client's body, especially if you go on to work with diabetics or exercise referral work as well. So really important. So what I want you to imagine, you've got my fantastic drawing on screen. And so what I want you to imagine is that the red strip along the bottom is your artery or your blood vessel. Let's go with blood vessel. And the little blue dot swimming around in there is your glucose. So you've got some glucose swimming around, and we know that glucose comes from carbohydrate. So glucose is literally just carbohydrate whilst it's floating around in our blood. That's the name for glucose. Now, when glucose is stored, either in our liver, muscle, or fat, those are the 3 places we can store it, any of those cells. When we store it in there, it becomes something called glycogen. Not glucagon, glycogen. Now, in this is glycogen when it's stored, glucose when it's floating. Okay? So, if we end up in our sensory receptors in here that says, oh God, this person's gone way too much on their sugary food tonight. They've got cookies in there, they've got maybe a huge amount of carbohydrates, and the sugar levels are high. Our sensory receptor sends out a signal, CNS responds, and our body goes, we need some more insulin. So it stimulates the pancreas to create more and to send out more hormone, insulin. And the reason why we need insulin is because insulin is the hormone that literally takes that glucose and opens up the door to put it in our liver so that it can be stored as glycogen, puts it in our muscle, and it puts it in our fat. So insulin is like the key. It unlocks these doors to this storage world, basically. So insulin basically just goes, time to go back in there, time to get stored, and it opens up the door and lets them go in. And the problem that diabetics have is that either their insulin doesn't work properly, or they don't make enough of it, or none at all, which means that they end up having to have synthetic ways or synthetic insulin injected, which is a different way of them being able to get the same result. So what's happening in this situation then is if we have glucose floating around in our body, insulin moves glucose into any of these cells. Now the liver's got a select amount of storage, but it's a favoured place to put it. And then the muscles have got a select amount of storage, but again, a really useful place to have glycogen hanging around ready so we can use it for action. But if both of those are full, then we have unlimited amounts of capability in our fat cells. So if we've got extra glucose hanging around, just chuck it in the fat cells. So you're already starting to see how this relates into weight management as well. Really important with these hormones. Now, we can't just have something that allows us to decrease our blood sugar levels, because that's basically what insulin does, yeah? It decreases our blood sugar levels by moving glucose into the cells. We need something that can mobilize that glucose again if we ever need it. So there's no point having something stored if we can't get it back out. So this is the role of glucagon, and this is the one that makes it gone from the liver, muscles and fat. It literally is the opposite to insulin, so that when we get a little sensation happen at the sensory receptors in our blood vessels that says, oh God, I'm a little bit low on blood glucose. Maybe you're at the end of a tiring day. Maybe you've kind of hit that point now, need a cup of tea. You literally have this sensory receptor kick in and it just says, I'm low on blood glucose. Now you've got two options. You can either eat something and get some more in your blood, or glucagon can literally just take it and take it out of the liver, the muscles and the fat, and through a certain level of systems then pushes that into your blood vessels again. So it tops it up and it becomes glucose again in your blood system. So these two work opposite. Insulin moves glucose into the cells. Glucagon moves glycogen from the cells and makes it glucose in the blood. Ta-da! So can you see how the endocrine system really is just a balance of different hormones to make us stay in one particular place? Now, as soon as you know what the others do, so you might go parathyroid is about calcium or about water levels in the body. So with thyroid and parathyroid and metabolism, I know that now that one must take it up and one must take it down. I know that with the pituitary is about growth hormone, one of them must take it up and one of them must take it down. So you've kind of got opposites in the body, and it allows us to keep us in a nice even keel the whole time. So as it's now fast upon us, let's quiz that. Let's see how that's stuck in the brain for that nice little quick tip. What hormone is released when blood glucose levels falls? So pop your little answer in the chat box and we will go from there. Also start collecting your questions if you can, because I'm going to hit some questions shortly. Keep all of these coming in. And some good answers coming in. Fantastic. Jamie, you're fast, really fast. So keep these answers coming in and make sure you go through your rebug system. Make sure you grasp what is it that they're exactly asking me. Because this is the type of question where you can easily get it the wrong way around, just because we maybe haven't read the question enough. So really think about it, really digest it, and then have a guess and see if your answer's there. Good, some fantastic answers coming in. So I'm going to give you your answer. So if you're ready for it, the answer is D. So the answer is glucagon. So remember, if it's what hormone is released when blood glucose levels fall. So when the blood glucose level is low, at what point, what hormone would need to be stimulated in order to take that back up to homeostasis? And in order to keep it balanced, what would need to happen? So this is a wording question, isn't it? Absolutely wording. And I know you guys would have either have gone for A or D, but the answer is D, because it's going to take the glycogen out of the cells and put it back in the blood as glucose, so it takes the blood glucose levels back up. That's kind of what it's asking us. It's just that clarity of what do they mean? What exactly do they mean? Nice. Okay, yeah. Okay, really good one there, actually. A few people saying I should have just put my answer down. I was right after all. I shouldn't have doubted myself. So yeah, really good stuff. So this kind of brings us to the end of our main component here today. I've got a few questions that I definitely want to answer for you guys that you've sent in individually that I want to go through in relation to anatomy and physiology. Start getting those questions in for me now. Now, the other part of this is that I know some of you are struggling with your anatomy and physiology revision, and that things like video and how I've just done it on presentation here is really, really helpful. So I kind of want to give you a way that you can do this the best you possibly can. I speak to revision mastery guys all the time about how they're getting on in their studies, and that's part of the beauty of it, is that you get to give us a ring if you need anything. But the other side is that they find it so beneficial, because we actually have this revision mastery series, and it is all 7 modules that I highlighted at the beginning. All 7 modules of anatomy and physiology, broken down into between 30 minutes and about an hour in length, so that you have an hour video, for example, just on heart and lungs, and then an hour video just on endocrine. So you can imagine the content we can get through and all the little golden nuggets we can get in there in that time. If in an hour and a quarter we've gone through 3 modules of the main points. So you guys have played really full out, and if you've really enjoyed this and you want more, then I've got a special offer for you. I'm going to put the link into the chat box. Now, the Revision Mastery Series is usually sold at £97. I'm going to share that with you now. However, we've done a special offer for you guys, and that's because you've played full out here. You've listened to the whole, you've played full out, you've answered all the questions, you've listened to the interactions, and you're the type of people that are really going to benefit from this, and you're the type of people that we want to work with, because you're action takers and you're here at 8:45 on a Thursday evening doing your best to get the best result you can. And that's why we've given you a specific, really great offer. And it's taken it down to £25, which I think is absolutely insane to be able to have all of that content. So I'm going to pop this link in your chat box now so that you can get to it. Now, this offer is going to stop. Let me pop this in here so you can see it. This offer is going to stop at midnight tonight, so it is just for you guys on the webinar. Now, I must stress, some of you are already on Revision Mastery. You don't need to buy this again, you already have it. Some of you are our learners already on courses. You don't need to buy this one, you already have it. But those of you that I don't know, because there's a lot of names on here that I've not come across before, then check it out, see how it suits with you, and if you've enjoyed learning from a video point of view, then please do check it out, because it will massively help you in your exam and going through all 7 modules. Now, I was talking to Gemma earlier today, and she is on the line, so I hope she won't mind me using her name, but she was saying how beneficial it's been while she's been driving in the car. She can listen to the videos, so you get to hear my dulcet tones. She does it when she's cleaning, and she even says she does it when she's trying to get to sleep, which I don't know if it's a compliment or not. But the beauty of it being in video format is what I'm trying to say, is that you can literally have it in a way that you can then break it down, and you can take it in places that you can't usually take your manual. You can listen to it on the tube, whereas you can't really get your manual out whilst you're kind of travelling. So they're kind of some massive parts about it. I'm sure you've got some questions too. I've got a couple of content questions I've already been asked that I'm going to go through on the next slide. As I say, that offer is open until midnight. If you need anything, then please do shout, and I will go through from there. Had a nice smiley face from Gemma that says that it's been great. So I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. And Gemma says it's okay to use our names. Thank you. Then also just looking through on your questions. I'll leave this up on screen so you can see it. But as I look through the questions that are coming in, then we've got, thank you, Donna. I'm really glad you enjoyed the session. And yes, the Revision Mastery course covers all 7 modules. It is literally the whole shebang. It is everything. And it really does fit everything that you would need to know in relation to your exam. And I have a little comment in here from Pauline. Thanks, Pauline. I'm glad you could make it actually tonight. And she says she's been using the Revision Mastery to revise this week, and her exam is next week. And it's brilliant. Thanks. Oh, it's really nice to hear. Thank you so much. And I'm sure you will pass. So we often get it that people have failed in the past, and then they go, oh, I shouldn't have been so complacent, or I should have done some more learning, or whatever it might be, and then they suddenly go, I'll make an action to make it change. Now you guys are big on your action because you're here tonight, which is really, really great. So that just shows to me that you're willing to put the effort in, willing to do the time on your revision. And I'll be honest with you, not only does that boost your confidence in the right way, but it also prepares you. It helps all the stuff sink in, because if we just read something once, it's hard to imagine that sticking in our brains. But if we listen to it over and over again, or we can view it in different ways, then it allows it to stick in our brains in a totally different way. So yes, Donna, it does cover all of the 7 modules, and tonight has been recorded, so you will be able to get a copy of tonight as well. And it is a very similar format to this. It's just in each individual module. So nice. Thank you for those questions. Jamie, love this question. Really, really good. The videos that I'm going to send you are from a Revision Mastery point of view. On the Revision Mastery, they are watchable via Wi-Fi only. But if you ask me, I can send you a conversion tool. And this conversion tool literally means you can download it into MP4 or into MP3, which means you can put it on your phone and you can do whatever you need with it. And that then means you can use it as you need. And that's what our current level 2 group have been doing, and they've had great responses from it. So sometimes it's a bit of a pain in the bum if you've got to sit down and have Wi-Fi. You find yourself in a coffee shop all of a sudden, but you don't need to as long as you have a conversion tool. So let me know and I can send you that as well. Catherine, I'm glad it was really useful and helpful. Thank you. And those of you on Revision Mastery are saying that this has also been helpful as a nice little top up and just phrasing things in a different way and getting you moving. So I'm glad. Donna, that's a lovely comment. Thank you. Fantastic. When you sign up on that, Donna, I'm glad you're joining us. That's lovely. When you do sign up, then just make sure you fill in your details afterwards and you'll get your link straight away. You'll have it tonight. So you'll have all of your videos ready to go. Lovely. Donna, I will write your name down to send you that conversion tool, and then you can do it in the car and on your MP3 player. One of our learners is a postman. He does it on his rounds, so he gets actually technically paid for revising, which I think is fantastic. So there we go, conversion tool. So Donna, I've written you down so I don't forget you. I've got a question here from you, Catherine, as well, which I noticed first thing, so I will answer that in just a second, about lordosis and kyphosis. So I'll do that one in just a minute. Gareth, yes, you are a Revision Mastery. I'm glad you picked that one up. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm glad it's been helpful and that you've enjoyed the mastery that you've got as well. Pauline, conversion tool, yes, I will. Got my work cut out tonight, sending these over. Fantastic. Yes, Jamie, I'll pop you on there as well. That's fine, I'll send that across. And Phil, I know you well, Phil, and I hope everything goes really well for your sports massage A&P exam. And I love this. I love that you're using this as a nice little top up. That muscle structure stuff we've done will really, really help. So yeah, good luck for it. Good stuff. So it looks like some of these questions are coming to an end, but if there's any particular content questions that you guys have, this is kind of the space where I can really answer those right now. So let's have a look through. In fact, if I leave that slide on there, you guys can have a look through that whilst I go through the questions. So the first one is from Catherine. She said, what is the difference between lordosis and kyphosis? This really is due to the different part that it appears at in your spine. So they are both postural disorders, for want of a better word, but postural misalignments. So lordosis, think of the L, lordosis begins with L, that happens only in the lumbar spine, so L to L, happens in the lumbar spine. And if you think about the lumbar spine, usually it has a little curve to it regardless, that nice little lumbar curve. Now that lumbar curve is, if it's exaggerated lumbar curve, so kind of like throwing your stomach forwards, then that is lordosis. So lordosis is just an exaggerated curve of the lumbar spine. And the way I like to remember this is you stand like a lord, like sticking your belly out. I do have a vivid imagination, so apologies, guys. Then kyphosis is affecting the thoracic spine, so that's where your ribs are, so that part of your spine. And naturally we're slightly curved forward, like in a little tiny hunchback position, but an exaggerated kyphotic curve, so excessive kyphosis, is literally an exaggeration of this to the point that that person's almost in a hunchback position. So hopefully that really clears up the difference between those for you, Catherine. If you just pop in and just say whether that covers those okay for you, that'd be great. Good. Another question coming in, and this one is about reciprocal inhibition. Oh, I love this one. This one's great. Okay, so you guys know that muscles happen in pairs, and we know that as one contracts, the other one must relax. So think about the bicep. When you contract your bicep, your tricep is in the most relaxed it can possibly be. That action in itself is what reciprocal inhibition means. Inhibition means that, like, if you're inhibited, it kind of means shy or like inactive. So it's inactive, it's inhibited. And then reciprocal means it happens at the same time. So it's basically as one contracts, the other relaxes. And this only happens in pairs. So if this comes up and it's asking about what the series of reciprocal inhibition is, for example, then it might just be asking about whilst one contracts, the opposite muscle, the antagonist, would relax. So if the agonist is contracting, the antagonist would relax. And that's generally what they're digging at with the reciprocal inhibition. So I hope that covered that one nicely for you as well, Gemma. So think agonist and antagonistic pairs. Any other questions in relation to content or anything, then please do fire them away. Other than that, I will make sure that this special link comes through to you on email tonight. So the special link that I promised you with the video, 50-minute video. So yes, so you get that specific video for the 50 minutes on heart and circulatory. It comes through to you on email. Then you'll get this on a replay tomorrow. That will be sent through on tomorrow, but you'll have access to it. It takes a little while to be loaded up on my Wi-Fi. But if you've enjoyed tonight, it would be really great if you could just hop on over to Facebook and just say that you've been training with us tonight with Parallel Coaching, with me, Hayley, if you like, Hayley Bergman. You can tag me in, that's cool, and literally just say that what you've learned from tonight and what your big takeaway messages are and how much more confident you're hopefully feeling in relation to your exam. As I say, my main aim is that you walk out of here feeling totally confident in what you're doing and feel like at least a couple more % confident to take your exam and pass. So massive high five and well done for today. Pop a little comment on Facebook, say how you've got on, tag in Parallel Coaching, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you on some future revision mastery work. If you've booked your revision mastery, make sure you book a call afterwards as well. You'll have an opportunity to book a call with me. Then we get to have a little chat and go through your main questions, and we can literally go from there. So any other questions, pop them in. I'll stay on for literally about another minute, and then I will say cheerio. But if you guys are done for tonight, you can disappear. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a lovely evening, and thank you for joining me. Thank you for playing full out. Thanks, guys. Lovely. Okay, have a nice evening, and we will speak soon.